I'm so fucking and welcome to my space on the internet. In this video, I'm going to be going into creating relationships within your Swift API. In the last video, we created some CRUD operations, pretty basic, creating, retrieving, updating, deleting. But what do you do when you have relationships between two models? You have a user and a user has multiple potatoes, for example. Use relationships. We have two types, parent, child, as well as sibling. Parent-child is one-to-many. So you have one parent to many children, or you have siblings, many to many type of relationship. I'll be using the Vapor 3 framework for this video. Take a second, like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, all of that fun juicy stuff so that you can stay connected with me. Okay, the video.
Alright, so in setting up our parent-child relationship, we have a child of planet to our parent of user. And so if we open up our planet model file, we'll see that we already have a property of user ID on our planet model. So from here, we want to go ahead and extend our planet model so that we can actually add the relationship between our planet and our user, which is a parent-child relationship. So once we've extended our planet, then we can go ahead and add a computed property called user and it's going to be of type parent, which is going to be parent of planet, which would be a user, and we're going to return our parent, which is going to be referenced to the user ID property that we defined above. And so from here, we've set up our essential access point to retrieve our user parent, and now we can go ahead and hop into our user model file so that we can go ahead and do the same for our user, but in this case it'll be accessing the children or the planets for our user, because with a parent-child relationship it is one to many where the parent can have multiple children. So for our user, we're creating a computer property of planets of type children, which is going to be a user has multiple planet children, and on each planet child we're referencing the user ID. So whichever user ID on the planet which links up with the user ID of our actual user object, that'll be returned as a child of our user object. So one more thing we need to do for our parent child is set up foreign key constraints. So foreign key constraints assure that our parent is not being, a parent actually exists. If we are adding a child, it's being added to a parent that exists, it's being added to a user that exists. If we are going to delete our parent, we're making sure that all of our children, all the children related to that parent is deleted first. And it also safeguards against making sure that our user table is not deleted prior to our planet table being deleted. And so down, we're going to go ahead and add some custom modifications to our migration. And so this is what is actually prepared once we're getting ready to create our planet table. And once we've created our database and we've added our properties, we're just going to go ahead and build a reference from our user ID property to the user table, and specifically the ID column of our user table. And so in our planet, we have our extension to access our user. We have our migration, which builds that reference link foreign key constraint within our actual database. And in our user file, we have our computer property for accessing our planets. So we want to go ahead, and one more thing you want to check in our configure file, we want to make sure that our planet table is being created after our user. All right, moving on to sibling relationships. So in terminal, we're going to go ahead and create a new file, which is going to be our planet cheese pivot.swift file. And in terminal, when you add the keyword touch, it creates the file. From there, we're going to regenerate our Xcode project. Vapor Xcode-Y regenerates our project with the new added file taken into consideration and opens it up in Xcode. So hopping into our hopping into our planet cheese pivot file, we're going to go ahead and have it subclass our MySQL UUID pivot, and we're creating our planet cheese pivot as a final class so that it's not able to be subclassed. So in our pivot, we're adding our planet ID as well as our cheese ID properties, which is going to reference to an ID of our planet as well as an ID of our cheese. Now we want to go ahead and set a type alias for our left and right. So our left will be our planet, our right will be our cheese, and this is going to be used so that we can actually set the left ID key to extend our planet ID and our right ID key to extend our cheese ID. And so from here, now that we've set up that left, right, planet, cheese relationship, we can go ahead and add an initializer, which is going to take two arguments, planet as well as cheese, and it's going to throw, since we're going to attempt to access the ID of our planet as well as the ID of our cheese that's being passed in, and then assigning that value to the planet ID and cheese ID of our pivot. And so the planet cheese pivot really acts as the middle woman between the different siblings that have that relationship. We're going to extend it with migration as well as modifiable pivot, so that it can actually be altered. All right. Now, if we hop into our configure file, we need to actually add our pivot. So our pivot, in a sense, is its own table. And it's its own table that actually manages the relationship between the two models that we've added. So we add that migration, and within our planet, we can go ahead and now extend so that we can have that sibling relationship. And so remember, sibling relationship, many to many. And so in our planet model, when we create the computed property of cheeses and we have that it's of type sibling, that pivot is useful and necessary because it's going to dictate which siblings actually are linked with that object. And with our cheese, it's the same thing. And so there's no ID that we're actually referencing because we're just taking everything that matches with that specific object and we're sending it back. And so our planet cheese pivot really handles and manages what IDs are being pushed back and forth. Stay tuned for part 2, where I update the endpoints so that we can actually access these relationships. All right, that's the end of this video.